Welcome back to Tech Ascent, the show where we dive into the trends, strategies, and success stories that are reshaping the tech landscape as we know it today. I'm your host, Oliver Clingain. Today, we've got a fantastic guest to join us, joined by Jeff Newman, the Chief Revenue Officer at Sovreign. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Oliver.
It's a pleasure to have you on. Would you mind just kicking us off, telling us a little bit about yourself and what you guys do at Sovreign?
Sure, yeah. So Sovreign, we spelled it we dropped the first E, the extra vowel, so we can have a brand name. So we're Sovreign, Sovreign, and then .io if you want to find us on the website. So I'm the Chief Revenue Officer. We are like a startup for professional services for Bitcoin education, integration, and adoption. And so I like to say we're like the Deloitte McKinsey. Like we can do like projects, education, but also business services around, helping you map out your goals and so forth. But the fundamental thing that sets Sovreign apart is we're all Bitcoin maximalists. So that's where we found each other. That's where we decided to team up and create this professional services consultancy. And part of being a Bitcoin maximalist is proof of work, which means you have to do the work to arrive at the conclusion that Bitcoin is perfect money, the perfect store of value, and that it can benefit individuals and businesses to protect savings and so forth. And then we can integrate it into business use cases and strategies. So lots of different paths we can go down. But as the Chief Revenue Officer, it's kind of like a startup this last year or two. We've built this company. We've created a founding team. I've found sales hunters and professionals, and we're all educators at heart, and we all are mission aligned and values focused. And that's the non-negotiable is Bitcoin only. And why Bitcoin? And so I guess it's a bunch of people on the same mission where we say philosophically, what is money? And then we can actually make practical business applications. So store of value, medium of exchange, and unit of account. And these are kind of terminology that we all talk about, but maybe the normal person doesn't. And so there's many ways you can integrate Bitcoin and benefit from it. And you can save in Bitcoin. It can power your balance sheet. You can do medium of exchange, like let's say Square. They've turned on 4 million merchants to accept Bitcoin, point of sale. And unit of account is measuring value with Bitcoin. And that's a little bit of like mental models. And again, this can be an educational exercise. So one thing that really excites me is executive coaching and corporate education. So basically, we've all heard about Bitcoin. The biggest mistake you can do is conflate it with crypto. So it's Bitcoin, it's not crypto. What is crypto? Crypto is the 20 million other alt scammy coins that are not Bitcoin. And so we are Bitcoin only, and we're only going to help you with Bitcoin. But we also live in a dollar world, right? So as a Chief Revenue Officer, this is actually really interesting where we are consulting about Bitcoin. We are invoicing, and most businesses and our customers still live in the dollar world. So we can invoice you ACH, give you a dollar quote. But if you pay us in Bitcoin, we'll give you, let's say, 5% off. And if you pay us in Bitcoin, well, now we're walking the walk. Now we're stacking Bitcoin on our balance sheet. And we're paying commissions, and we're paying referral partners and vendors in Bitcoin. But if we must, we'll pay in dollars. And if you insist on making us pay with credit card, it's a 3% premium because no one wants to pay with credit card. So what's really interesting is if you have to do credit cards these days, there's a premium. If you do dollars, fine, it's flat. But we're incentivizing you to, even our customers, is to start using Bitcoin as money.
I like it. I like it. And you kind of touched on it there. There's a lot of people that would group Bitcoin and crypto, just throw them in the same bucket. When speaking to new customers, especially in the B2B space where it might not be as big of a talking point, how do you go about kind of educating people on the differences between the two and how it's useful for their business?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's so many different approaches. The easiest place is to find a business owner or operator who's already done some personal work on Bitcoin. Say, hey, I've already listened to some podcasts. I've already read some stuff. I have a book or two, and and I have some. But for my business, I need, I value professional services. By the way, we also have partners that do tax advisory, CPAs that are Bitcoiners. And we say, okay, you probably have a lawyer, you probably have a CPA, but if you're going to integrate Bitcoin, would you like to augment that with a Bitcoin first CPA, right? You would. And so again, it's professional services and we figure out the use case. So if they don't know anything about Bitcoin, that's okay. And I think that's the larger opportunity is someone who says, I've heard about Bitcoin, I've heard about it for years, but I'm busy. I have a family, I'm busy with my business, but I will use my business as a vehicle to hire professional service providers. I have a doctor, I have a lawyer, I have a CPA. What about a fractional Bitcoin officer? What about, 3 hours a month? The questions can change, but having a retainer for Bitcoin expertise. And then who can you trust in this space, right? Because it's Bitcoin only, high integrity. And again, we're not going to, the Web3, the NFTs, the altcoins, all these things we say no to. And so we won't, we're going to talk you away from it. We'll educate you why they're not good or they're different than Bitcoin, but also we'll deny projects if that's what the customer insists on. So to answer the question, yeah, if they don't already know why Bitcoin, and again, that's a journey to arrive at why Bitcoin and perhaps Bitcoin only. We talk about 21 million hard cap. So there's actual verifiable scarcity. We talk about proof of work. So the fact that it's not even a blockchain. There's lots of blockchains. Those could be databases, right? That's kind of a buzzword. Bitcoin, not blockchain, means it's actually a ledger backed by proof of work energy mining. So another way of saying it, and there's many ways to explain it, and I always enjoy these conversations, you cannot counterfeit Bitcoin. And when people say that, oh, it doesn't have intrinsic value or, it's worthless or all these things that aren't true, I say, perfect, send me one for free. And you can't do that, and no one can steal your Bitcoin either. You have to send it. It's a bearer instrument. It's like digital gold. It's one way to explain it, but there's, it goes deeper. But once you send someone a gold bar or hand someone a dollar bill, whomever has that in their hands, that's theirs now. It's a bearer instrument. Same thing with Bitcoin. If you could secure your private keys and you only share your public key, you choose to push the transaction, right? And again, the altcoins are all copies on inferior blockchains with less energy, and the market has voted that those are not the strongest blockchains. So when you think about store of value, where do I want to store my labor, my value, my time long term? You want to go to the apex predator, the winner take all money, and that's Bitcoin. And then this goes into, so I'm talking about store of value. And let's say you still live in a dollar world where your bills, your invoices are all in dollars, okay? But when you're done and it settles, you can convert some of that to Bitcoin. And if you were to save it for 5 years, and I'll just look to the past, if you were to save Bitcoin 5 years ago for your business, today it's up 10x in dollar terms. I can't promise the future, but if we're directionally correct, by the way, today I'll give you a reading. We are recording this at block height 924,448. So that's actually the blockchain unlocks a new block every 10 minutes. And there's websites where you can do like block clocks. But basically, the time chain is that I can tell you what block height we're at. And in the future, we know when this was recorded, or like right to the 10-minute increment. So let's just say, hypothetically, I can't promise anything. I can't predict the future, but I can look to the past, is if you were to save your value, a proportion of your balance sheet in Bitcoin, and at 10x's over the next 5 years, what would that mean for your business? Could you survive another pandemic? Could you outlive your competitors? Could you open new business lines, hire more people, grow? Versus if dollars are your unit of account and you save in dollars, what's the inflation rate? What's the currency debasement rate over 5 years? Did you lose 15% a year? Is that conservative? Is that a good strategy? Right. So again, it's if you have a choice, why not save some? And again, we can talk about ratios and, basically like what's right for your business. So what is your understanding? What's the right ratio? And then what's the right plan? If you're a startup, what's your burn rate? If you're a restaurant, how much cash are you dealing with, and what, how much do you need for the next 3 months? Things like that. So every business is different. Every person's different. These are private conversations, but we can really help with models to say, okay, how much should you be saving? Is it 5 or 10% to start? Are you more do you have more conviction where you want to have half of your balance sheet in Bitcoin? And then what's your long-term outlook? And again, if you were to measure things in Bitcoin, that's where it gets really interesting, is the
Mhm.
value of things. You talk about, nominal gains and real gains. If you make Bitcoin your denominator, and I just say that, or, it's been written online and so forth, but to really pause and talk about that unit of account, measure the long-term savings or the long-term appreciation of things, the value preservation in Bitcoin as your denominator. It's again, the charts, if you go over like 5 or 10 years, the US dollar over 15 years, and Bitcoin's about to turn 17, right? Um, it's crashed 99%. If you zoom out and look at history, you say, wow, the Bitcoin showed up 16, 17 years ago. And if we were to look at this like an academic or an analyst, you say, wow, the US dollar's lost 99% of its value against this thing called Bitcoin. You can plug in gold as your denominator. You can plug in other assets, the S&P 500. But again, it's a lot of folks I talk to that said this is the first time they've done it or have never done it. And so
Mhm.
it's that's where we have to begin, is education. And again, so we're doing consulting, we're doing advising, but really it's like education at heart. And some of our clients have like deliverables, like we want to do something. We want to save in Bitcoin. We want to have our customers pay us in Bitcoin. Um, or again, we need to do some models about how to plan for the future, but we need like Bitcoin experts to help us out. And so very interesting puzzles to solve together, but these all tie into the attributes of what is money: store of value, medium of exchange, unit of account. And for the first time, you have like a team of people with backgrounds of various backgrounds. Like some are real estate experts, some used to be bankers, others consultants, and professional sales executives coming together and saying, what's the use case? What's your business? What's your maturity? What are your goals? And yeah, it's a really interesting place to be right now, where um, it's the end of 2025. And my perspective is the next 5 years, right? 2026 to 2030. That's another 5 years. It's the second half of this decade. And, very optimistic about Bitcoin's adoption, Bitcoin being normalized in like legal terms, with Washington, D.C., and, actual commercial banks and local banks being like allowed to accept it, and, so forth. And also business loans against Bitcoin. That's another, if there's people that say that Bitcoin is a pristine collateral.
Mhm.
So if we agree, if again we've done the work and get to the conclusion that Bitcoin is perfect money, better money, stronger money, at least digital gold, and we could say that gold is stronger than the dollar is stronger than the peso, right? So it's, again, you just look at like what is a stronger currency or a stronger store of value. And so if you end up with the winner, Bitcoin, there are organizations that can do business lending. So you could have loans against it to expand your business and never sell. And these are also really interesting strategies. And our team watches the space very closely and has partners. So I know I've ranted a bunch, but
No, all good. It's super interesting. And let's
oh,
say while we're on this topic, while it's fresh, if somebody who's listening is a small business owner or works within a small business, what makes them necessarily a good fit versus a poor fit, whether that be just for themselves or even to be a client of yours when it comes
oh yeah.
to looking at Bitcoin?
That's a great question. Yeah. I mean, when we started, we're like, there's like two things. There's retail and there's business, right? Like, who are we helping? And retail is just you and I saying, I'm interested in, maybe I'm going to go to an exchange and get some Bitcoin, right? But the question is like, but are you going to spend would you go to Deloitte and pay them professional service hours for that education? And the answer is probably not. And there's a lot of free information on the internet. So we, Sovreign, spelled without the first .io, we have a free ebook on our website called "The Business Case for Bitcoin," and it's a like I think it's like 80 pages. It's a PDF you can download. It's got beautiful graphics, and really, it's like I've gotten wonderful feedback that it's a very good primer. It's a very good resource, and so that's free. We also have a podcast. Our CEO Brandon does industry podcasts where it's, again, it's on YouTube, it's on Spotify, et cetera. And like, basically it's like, yeah, these are topical things. There's free education out there. But we found that retail doesn't necessarily want to pay for professional services, and that makes sense. So if we can help a business, right, and a project, we're industry agnostic. It's quite all right. If you're a restaurant owner, a gym owner, like an SMB, right, the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, um, but also if you're a medium size or even an enterprise. I'll say what we're not doing. We're not going to do the strategy, MicroStrategy, publicly traded Bitcoin treasury consulting. That already exists. There's Bitcoin for Corporations, which uses the strategy open source playbook and is a partnership with Strategy and Bitcoin Magazine, the folks that do the magazine and the conferences. They're fantastic. We've gone to their conferences, respect what they do. But some of this could arguably be risky strategies. It depends on the teams and the organizations signing up for this. What we're saying is not financial market speculation or leverage. We're talking about saving it, integrating it, and also just doing business consulting of like how to fortify like you should have a business that's already working where Bitcoin can benefit you, or you're going to start a new business on the Bitcoin standard and it's integral to your strategy, but Bitcoin makes it safer, more conservative rather than risky. And what I love is if you're already a Bitcoiner, wonderful. That makes everyone's life easier, and we can get to we can go kind of up the maturity mountain. But if you're not a Bitcoiner and you're a business owner, operator, and decision maker, and you come to us, what I really enjoy is one, helping your business, and then the two-in-one benefit is that you say, I've heard about Bitcoin. I was never against it. I just never had the time, or now I'm using my business as a vehicle to learn about it from professionals, and therefore I can also help my family out with also some Bitcoin. So basically they get two in one. So they get retail benefits, but really it's a B2B project or relationship. And so, yeah, every customer is a different puzzle because we have to qualify what do you want to do? Who are you? What's your maturity? And, what are the outcomes? Where do you want to go? And because these answers vary, um, we could do a few hours of help. We could do a project that's scoped and with defined outcomes. And we could also literally do, like a retainer. Education as a service is actually, for me, super interesting to say, you kind of don't know what you need, but you know you need this, right?
Mhm.
So who can you trust? Who has a variety of talent, like and a deep bench of talent, and again, like different people could come to different sessions. And so I'll give you another example. I did a webinar a few months ago, and one of the audience members he's like, I'm a Bitcoin maxi, and he even says so on LinkedIn, but he's like the network IT guy at a large corporation. I would have never knocked on the door or targeted or asked for a meeting with this large corporation. We don't have a big enough team to do RFPs. We don't have the time, but here's a self-identified Bitcoin maxi, watched the webinar, calls me the next day and says, Jeff, if you can help me, like I'm the only Bitcoiner at my company, can you help me convince the board, can convince the committee about the need for us to save in Bitcoin or, do some type of project. So, a defined scope, integration, adoption, what have you. And I said, perfect. Like, tell me more about like, what is the outcome? What do you need? I'll assemble the team. But what is this? What is this? This is like, somebody who's in a large corporation or a large organization says, plug us in and we are the extension of your team. We are, education, Bitcoin, fractional reserve officers, but guide us to success. How do we help you implement your strategy or your thing? And yeah, so that's been an interesting one too, where, I don't even rule out large companies. And he's not trying to do a publicly traded, strategy or, Metaplanet play. He's literally just saying, no, we're a corporation. Even if his stock is publicly traded, it's just how does Bitcoin benefit the company? And, saving in Bitcoin and preserving your purchasing power against currency debasement, somebody identified the problem, you know?
Mhm. Mhm. And if there's somebody listening, Jeff, that's maybe they're a business owner looking to start to dabble in Bitcoin, without the obvious one of reaching out to you, over the next 30 days, what's kind of one piece of advice you'd give them to kind of get themselves off of the ground?
Yeah, great question. Well, that is a great question. So you have to be curious, right? I joke that like I've got a whole list of podcasts and you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. I have a whole downloaded, podcast library of what I find is like the best, but I've got people in my life that don't want to hear it. Like, put on your headphones. So, um, in the next 30 days, it's the holidays, it's winter, right? There's books, there's great books, there's the Bitcoin Standard. There are wonderful podcasts. Again, Michael Saylor has pontificated and educated the world through podcasts and so forth. And so there's plenty of resources that are free, including we have the free ebook. We have our own podcast library, on YouTube with Brandon. I've done a few podcasts too, like, with colleagues and so forth. So there's plenty of content out there, but it really has to go into like, well, what do you really want to do? Because if you're just generally interested in Bitcoin, the good news is there's a wealth of information and most of it's free. There's lots of podcasts. There's lots of free content out there. There's some good books. There's some ebooks. But if it's for business, again, the difference between a personal consumption versus I really do want for the business, then I think it would welcome a conversation. And I'm happy to talk to anybody. And one of the things I really do enjoy is being a quarterback to say, okay, I'm listening. This is the conversation I do want to have, by the way. Like I very much like we're on the mission, like fix the money, fix the world. And if you can arrive at the conclusion that Bitcoin is better money, even if you live in a hybrid world where you still like, think in dollars, but if you can slowly transition and stack some sats, you don't have to have even a whole Bitcoin. Unit bias, you can have less than a whole Bitcoin, but you're off of zero. Now you're on the network. It's like now you're using the internet. I'll give you an example. 25 years ago, most business owners were like reluctant and said, what is this new .com thing? Why do I need a web domain, a .com, and why do I need an email address? And some of us who are old enough to remember, we laugh at that. But today, the analogy is, why do I need to run a node, take possession, self-custody of my Bitcoin, have my own keys, and maybe have a lightning channel, right? Stream value, accept money from customers, cut out the 3 to 4% Visa, MasterCard, Amex fees, right? But also like micro tipping, you can't tip 5 cents with a credit card, doesn't make economic sense, but you can zap with units of Bitcoins, Satoshis. I just share with this all to say that it's 2025, it's 25 years into the new century. And like the parallel here is that we see, being self-sovereign as an individual, as a business owner, but living in a hybrid world where it makes sense, but set up a node, take possession of your own keys, lightning channel, like, streaming value. By the way, you can listen to some of these podcasts, what they call podcasting 2.0, where I think it's fountain.fm is one of the good ones. And you can micro tip the podcaster, and therefore the podcaster doesn't have to rely on advertising. And so basically it's value for value is what they call it. It says, hey, thank you for taking the time to make a podcast. This was super interesting. Let me micro tip you, 5 cents worth of Bitcoin called Satoshis. That's cool. That can be done today. The future's here,
Mhm. I need that for Tech Ascent.
Yeah, absolutely. Publish on fountain.fm. It's super cool. Yeah, man. So no, I think I am the quarterback. I'm the chief revenue officer. We have a wonderful team of people. It's growing. Oh, by the way, we're also global. We have folks that speak Spanish. We got a guy in Argentina. I'm talking to people in Europe and Asia. Um, you know, Again, the mission, we want to help everybody. So really it's just like introduce yourself and then I can qualify and understand better like how we could help you and who could help you. And if it's not us, we know like, by the way, we all vetted industry partners. For example, Sovreign does not sell Bitcoin. We're not an exchange, but we're going to point you to the right places to keep you out of the casino.
Mhm.
There's some big names in the industry that you go there, you get confused, and then you end up not buying actual Bitcoin. You buy again, they prey on you with unit bias, and then there's the shiny objects for the casino. And we're here to help you like stay on the straight and narrow. And that's another value prop is say, we have vetted referral partners for whatever your need may be. And if you listen to us, we'll keep you out of trouble. So there's a huge opportunity cost, right? What I say, let me say this. We're at the end of 2025 going into 2026. The joke is, when was the first time you heard about Bitcoin? And then when did you do something about it, right? That's the gap. And it hurts people's egos because I heard about it 10 years ago and then didn't do anything. And now it's appreciated 100x or whatever. And today I haven't done anything, but it's not over. You're still early. It's Bitcoin is a network that works and will work for the rest of your life and your children's lives, et cetera. So the point is, hey, I missed the internet in the 90s. Okay, log in right now. Get an email address right now. Let's go. Like you can start a company on the internet right now. Like you didn't miss the boat on the internet. It's just the internet has improved, and so has the Bitcoin network is stronger, but the opportunities are still here. So one of that is like opportunity cost and like, sunk cost fallacy and like you feeling like you missed the boat and, but if you just say, accept that, okay, now is the best time to start, but start small, be conservative, learn as you go. And it's about proportionality, like learn and have conviction and know what you're doing. And like, so Ray Dalio, I don't know if you know him. He's, um,
Yep.
Bridgewater top hedge fund guy. Okay. So today in the news, it's November 20th. He just said, yeah, he has 1% of his portfolio in Bitcoin. And about a month or two ago, he was saying, yeah, I think 5 to 15% should be in a gold or Bitcoin. And I was like, that's cool. He's on purpose conflating. He's saying that gold and Bitcoin are the same. Because what do they both do? They both serve the same purpose, to protect you from what JP Morgan and others are calling the debasement trade. So finally, the biggest names in the industry are acknowledging that the US dollar is getting debased, and to protect yourself as an investor, you might want to have a scarce digital asset like Bitcoin or classic gold, which is scarce, and so that's pretty cool. Yeah.
No, I'm a big fan. I think this has been super informative for everybody listening. And on that earlier point, reminds me of one of my favorite sayings is the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, but the second best time to plant that tree is today. So I think that's kind of the spot we're at, whether it be with a tree, with the internet, with Bitcoin, whatever it may be. Stop sitting on your hands and kind of take some action.
Love it. Yeah. Great summary, Oliver.
Awesome. And Jeff, I think this is a good point to wrap up then. I'll be sure to tag your LinkedIn and Sovreign's website down below. We can even get that ebook tagged if people are interested. Is there anything else you'd like put in the description that people should go check out?
I think that's a great start. And I guess the last thing I'll say is, the door is open, knock on it. We're friendly. We're here to help. And I think a lot of your show guests are AI, and I love AI for productivity and so forth. And Bitcoin is for value preservation. So whatever gains you make with your AI, your labor, and so forth, wonderful. But don't forget about learning about Bitcoin. It's hand in glove. That they go side by side. So
Yep. Two
yeah,
hot topics for sure. And that's why I appreciate you taking the time to come on the show. And for
yeah,
everybody listening, I appreciate you taking the time to tune in. Be sure to hit like and subscribe down below. And Jeff, one last thank you. We appreciate your time.
yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it.